You know, it's easy to think of our planet as this stable, safe home, but the rock right under our feet, it tells a much more violent story. It's a story of global catastrophes, of entire worlds that just vanished, and of life getting almost completely snuffed out, not just once, but over and over again.
So let's just dive right into that. The fossil record shows us 5 moments in deep history that were so catastrophic, scientists call them the Big Five mass extinctions. And we're not talking about just a bad day here. These were full-on apocalypses that completely redrew the tree of life. If we want to understand our world today, we first have to understand the worlds that were wiped out to make room for it.
So here's our roadmap through Earth's biggest disasters. We're about to take a journey from an alien ocean world 444 million years ago all the way up to that famous final knockout punch that took out the dinosaurs. Let's get started with our very first apocalypse.
Okay, let's set the scene. 444 million years ago. Picture this. The land is just barren rock. No trees, no animals scurrying around, not even soil. All the action, all of life, is happening in the oceans.
And wow, what a place it was. The warm, shallow seas were absolutely teeming with creatures like these trilobites, those cool, armored critters you see scuttling around. You had brachiopods that looked kind of like clams, and these bizarre, almost alien-looking nautiloids. It was a complex, thriving world, but it was about to get hit with a deep freeze.
So the wild thing here is that this wasn't just one disaster. It was a devastating 1-2 punch. First, this giant supercontinent called Gondwana drifted down over the South Pole. This allowed massive ice sheets to form, which locked up so much water that sea levels just plummeted. This destroyed all the shallow coastal homes where most of the life was. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, the planet suddenly warmed up fast, melting the ice and shocking all the survivors with totally new ocean chemistry.
And the toll was just staggering. 85% of all marine species were wiped out. This was the second largest mass extinction our planet has ever seen. Life barely hung on by a thread.
All right, let's fast forward to our next catastrophe, around 360 million years ago. And this time, the culprit wasn't ice, it wasn't a volcano, it was something you would never, ever expect. Trees. Yep, you heard me right. Life's greatest new invention on land became the ocean's worst nightmare.
The Devonian period is famously known as the Age of Fishes. The oceans were ruled by giants like the Dunkleosteus, that terrifying armored fish right there, along with early sharks and these huge sea scorpions. But up on the continents, a revolution was happening. The first real forests were spreading, and some brave pioneers like this guy, Tiktaalik, were taking their first clumsy steps out of the water.
So how in the world does a forest kill an ocean? Well, it's a fascinating, tragic chain reaction. These new trees were so successful, their deep roots started breaking down rocks, which released a flood of nutrients into the rivers. All this, well, fertilizer, washed into the oceans, triggering these enormous algae blooms that sucked up all the oxygen in the water, creating vast dead zones and basically suffocating marine life.
In the end, about 75% of all species died out, mostly in those newly poisoned oceans. The planet's first forests almost killed the very seas that gave them life. Crazy, right?
Okay, we've now arrived at the big one, the apocalypse against which all other apocalypses are measured. 252 million years ago, life on Earth came so incredibly close to being completely wiped out that it's actually terrifying to think about. This event is known for a very good reason as the Great Dying.
At this point in history, pretty much all the continents had smashed together to form the supercontinent Pangaea. And for the first time, the land was just crawling with large, complex animals. You had these seriously strange-looking creatures like the fin-backed Dimetrodon and the ferocious saber-toothed Gorgonopsians. Life was diverse, it was thriving.
And then the planet itself just ruptured. And what is now Siberia, a huge volcanic area, erupted on a scale that is almost impossible for us to comprehend today. And it didn't stop. It went on for hundreds of thousands of years, pumping unbelievable amounts of carbon dioxide and other toxic gases into the atmosphere, triggering a runaway greenhouse effect.
The oceans heated up and turned acidic, basically becoming a toxic bath. The result? 96%. Let that sink in. 96% of all marine species vanished. Almost every living thing in the sea was just gone. And on land, it was nearly as bad. About 70% of all vertebrate species disappeared.
The Great Dying. The name says it all, doesn't it? It took millions and millions of years for life to recover from this. It was the absolute closest our planet has ever come to being a dead world.
So after that, the few survivors found themselves on a pretty empty planet. This set the stage for our next extinction, an event that, while it was devastating, actually cleared the board for what would become the most legendary animals of all time.
In the Triassic period that came next, the world was ruled by these huge crocodile-like reptiles. The very first dinosaurs had shown up by then, but they were mostly small, kind of scrawny creatures like Coiophysis, pretty much just living in the shadows of giants like Postosuchus.
But then, wouldn't you know it, history decided to repeat itself. As the supercontinent of Pangaea started to rip apart at the seams, another series of massive volcanic eruptions kicked off. And once again, the atmosphere was flooded with CO2, causing rapid, extreme climate change.
And here's the twist. This extinction was incredibly picky. For reasons scientists are still trying to figure out, the big reptiles and the other dominant groups got totally wiped out. But the dinosaurs? Maybe it was their efficient lungs or something else, but they survived. The extinction of their competition created this huge power vacuum, and they were perfectly ready to fill it.
And that, of course, brings us to the most famous extinction of all. After making it through the Triassic event, the dinosaurs went on to rule the planet for an incredible 135 million years. But their epic reign was about to come to a very sudden, very violent, and spectacular end.
Try to picture it. One completely ordinary day, 66 million years ago. A T-Rex is out hunting, a Triceratops is grazing, and then a little light appears in the sky. And that light gets brighter and brighter until it's as bright as the sun. And in the blink of an eye, everything changes.
The impact was just unimaginable. An asteroid the size of a mountain slammed into the Earth, releasing the energy of billions of atomic bombs. It triggered magnitude 11 earthquakes and rained down superheated debris across the whole planet, setting the world on fire. Then, a massive cloud of dust blocked out the sun, plunging the world into a dark, cold, impact winter that might have lasted for a decade.
When the dust finally settled, about 75% of all life on Earth was gone. The non-avian dinosaurs, that's all of them except the ancestors of modern birds, were gone forever. But from the ashes of their world, a new group of survivors, small furry mammals, would rise up to claim the planet. And eventually, that would lead to us.
It's really humbling when you think about it. The dinosaurs dominated this planet for 164 million years. Our species, Homo sapiens, we've only been around for about 300,000. We're just a blip. These 5 events show that life is both incredibly tough and incredibly fragile. And they're a stark reminder that no one rules forever. And the story of life on Earth is far, far from over.